Now we're going to extend our persistence to handle laser switches, and we're going to do this in a relatively simple way again. In fact, what I'd like to do is present this as a quick challenge. See if you can figure out how to get the level data working with the switches. So you do the same kind of thing that you're doing with the coins, but do it with the switches so that you can toggle them on and off and persist their state. When you're done with it though, follow along and watch my implementation, and then get ready because we're going to do some advanced stuff in the next section where we're going to take both of our methods and do some combination stuff to make it so that we can keep building extensible systems in the future. I don't want to spoil it too much or talk too much about it, so go ahead and see if you can figure out the level switch part, the laser switch, into level data for your laser switch, and then continue on if you get stuck or even when you're done, just so you can see my solution and see how it compares, and then be ready for the next part where we build out our bigger, more complex solution. All right, I'll assume that you've either paused and gone through it or you just want to continue on. So let's get started with the switch. First, I've got a yellow laser switch. Now I already dragged this one out, but I'm just gonna delete it again and go through that process again. So grab our laser switch, our yellow laser switch prefab, the one that we made before. I'm going to pop it right over here. I'm going to name this thing yellow laser switch 2 because I've saved some data on, actually, you know what, I'm going to just rename it back to yellow laser switch. We'll press play, and right now, if I load and save my game, I expect the state of this thing to not save at all, but my position to save. Let's just go verify that we're in the correct state and that we understand where we are. So we come over here, we run across, we switch our switch on. It doesn't do anything yet, but if I save the game, I don't have any switch data here or anything. So as soon as I reload, I expect it to, flip back over. So how are we going to address this? Well, let's dive into our system right now for persistence. We'll go into the game manager and adjust this window. And then we're going to dive into our part where we're binding our coins. So when we set up our coins, right now, remember, we find all of the coins in the scene, and then we use this coin data's array, or it's actually a list, on our level data, and then bind each coin up to one of those items. And then we create new coin data items if they don't exist. We're going to do the exact same thing for our laser switch. So we're going to need to create a laser switch data, give it a bind method, and then kind of copy this code right here. So what I'm going to do to start is just duplicate our bind coin. So just select it all, hit Control D, left arrow, enter twice, and let's call this bind laser switches. I need to make sure I use the word laser switches because if I start using switch, it's actually a reserved word and it'll start causing some issues. So I just like to put laser switches in there and be super explicit. Now I want to bind it to my level data still. I don't want to get all coins, so I'm going to rename this to all laser switches. And then I don't want to use coin here. I want to use a laser switch and continue on. I don't want to use a name coin. It's a laser switch. So again, I'll just rename again, laser switch. And then let's continue on to the next line. So this is looking at coin data. I want to look at laser switch data. And I haven't created those yet, but we'll figure it out. We'll create them. And I want to make sure that the name matches the laser switch name. That looks right. Data equals new coin data. Doesn't sound right. This should be a laser switch data. And then is collected. That doesn't make sense either. I think for a laser switch it'd be is on. Not is collected. And then finally, we've got laser switch data. So let's just copy that and paste it in. So now we've got a method to bind up laser switches to data, but we don't have a laser switch data class or the list here. So let's create both of those. We'll copy laser switch data onto the clipboard, control click on coin data, and I'll go down here and actually let's just select the entire class, duplicate it, hit that left arrow again and enter, and paste. We'll replace is collected with is on, and now I've got a laser switch data class. Let's go back. Next thing we need is laser switch data. So if I just hit Alt Enter here and hit generate field, make sure not to hit rename, I should end up with an object that's totally the wrong thing. So I'm just going to replace this with list of laser switch data. Now that said, I really wish Visual Studio would get those right instead of making me have to correct the type. But there we go. We want this to be a list of laser switch data so that they will get stored off. All right, things are looking good so far. We've got one issue left though, and that's that we don't have a bind method for our laser switch. So we're gonna need to generate that as well. I'll hit Alt Enter, generate a bind. And inside of here, first, let's make this public. We'll just set our underscore data equal to data, and that auto completed the totally wrong thing. So I'll go back and retype it, hit Alt Enter, and generate a field. And then we want to use the is on state of this data object instead of the is on bool here. So I'm just going to delete this is on bool, delete that private keyword, and then do a quick build, because that's going to show me all of the parts where I referenced is on, and then I can fix them. So just double click on it, and here I want to use underscore data dot is on. And in all of these other spots, I'm just going to copy and paste. Is on, and is on. Now, oops, got that twice, and I just undid it. Okay, let's see if I can get that correct in there. Okay, there we go. Is on is true. So the last thing that we need to do is deal with when we bind it, we want to restore the state of our object. If we just call turn on and turn off inside of our bind based on our data state, it's not actually going to work because the data state isn't changing. If we call turn on, if our data is on, well, it's already going to be on, so it won't do anything and it won't run this code in here. So we're going to extract out the code that switches on or deals with activating our switch or deactivating our switch and updating our, say it's kind of our switch state. So to do that, we're just going to cut, let's take lines 48 and 49. And actually, let's do a refactor instead. We'll hit Alt Enter and we'll extract a method. And let's call this update switch state. And then this is only the stuff that we want to do if it's off. So I'm going to add in a check here for if data is off. Yeah, so if data is on, we'll do something else. Otherwise, we'll do the off code. There we go. And then for the on code, we're just going to take this bit right here, 71 and 72, switching the sprite to the right mode and calling the on method. Finally, we need to call update switches from turn on so that we still run that code. We just call the correct one. And then in our bind method, right after we bind up the data, we'll call that update switch state as well. Let's rearrange these real quick. Get this update switch state. I want to move this down. Let's just cut it. And I'll paste it down below. All right, and there we go. That is our entire laser switch code. Let's go check it out now. So if I press play, I can see that I've got a laser switch data, but I have no entries for it. And the reason for that is simple. I forgot to call our method. So let's jump back into Unity and make sure that we actually call our new method from inside our game manager. So we've got bind coins, and see bind laser switches is light gray. It's just because we didn't call it. So duplicate bind coins, put in bind laser switches. We'll go back in, and now we should see our data bind up. There we go. You can see our laser switch is on, or it's in here. I can run across, it turns on. I can save my game and reload my game, and it's back in the correct state. If I switch it back off, I can save and reload, and it stays in the correct state. And go duplicate that switch. Let's go make a yellow laser switch 1 and a 2, and we'll just drag these over into different spots. There we go. Save and play, and we'll just go make sure that they all save independently, and we can see multiple laser switches in here. Let's just go double check that. So we'll run around, we'll go select our game manager, go over here, flip some switches. That's probably one of these. There we go. Flip another one, flip another one. Let's flip that one back over, save and reload, and things are in the exact same state again. So there we go. We've got a nice simple setup for binding up our laser switches, and hopefully you're starting to see how we can bind up any kind of data, although we are getting a little bit repetitive with the code. So it's about to be time to start refactoring and making things a little bit more generic. For now though, let's go into Plastic and make sure that we commit our changes. So we bind laser switches to persistent data, and we'll check that in.